All right, guys, great. So are you ready to move on to the final one? The final one is actually, again, two separate areas that would, again, when you have time, I would encourage you to explore on their own. So spend maybe a day just focusing on one of these areas and then the next day on another area and so on. It's a great way to get sensitized to this. The two areas that I want you to focus on finally are the lips and the eyes. They are basically 80% of the expressions that you have on your face will come from either the lips and the eyes, provide a lot of information. There are other places like the forehead and the jaw and so on. And they are important, but really, if you've got the lips and the eyes, it gives you a very clear, very quick picture of the other person, right? Once you have more time to develop this on your own, spend a day just focusing on the eyes on their own. Finish a day just focusing on the lips on their own. And again, you'll start seeing very interesting things coming out. Easy for that? Again, when you're looking for the lips, when you're looking for the eyes, and see if their peripheral vision, the rest of your sight, will still capture other things. You know, where's their foot positions? Where's their torso position? What's the rotation of their head? What are their hands doing? What is the quality of the movement that they are expressing? Does that make sense to you guys? Off you go. Oh, question, yes? Let me just turn that on for you.
Do you have any tips in terms of, I guess, how would I put it? Basically cleaning up whatever your own projections might be onto a person so that you can read their calibrations better?
Oh, your projection, in other words, how you're seeing the other person?
Yes, exactly. Because I noticed that as I'm like shifting states, you know, I'm having trouble actually like picking up someone else because of what I'm projecting, whether it be like friendliness or whether it be the other way.
This is where the particular version of this exercise will make life a little bit harder, because if you're feeling friendly, you'll start ignoring certain things. When you're feeling unfriendly, you'll start ignoring other things. I mean, that's just part of being human nature, because you've encoded certain behaviors into those two states.
Right.
So when you want to have a real clear sense of how people are responding, neutrality is the best state to have. The difference here in the terms of the exercise, the reason I want you to have those emotional states is partly so that you're giving other signals to people as well.
Okay.
And that helps there. So does that help somewhat?
All right, so it's part of the drill that there's a little bit of confusion so that everyone else can calibrate.
It will happen, yeah. Hence the idea of, if you still have the emotional thing, but all you have to do is focus on one thing, right? You'll be able to burst through that fog and still see it, right? For example, with the legs, if you find that you can't see the legs in general, then just focus on his left foot. Everyone you meet, even though I don't like you, I'm going to look at your left foot, okay, and oh, that's interesting we're doing with this foot, okay. You're great, I like you, oh, that's nice, I see that. So you just, the more you zero in on one simple activity, the more your mind can have that through whatever emotions you're projecting. Okay. Does that help?
Yes, actually it does.
Great.
Thank you.
Well, and there's another one, let's just turn that on for us.
Sure.
There we go.
How much of the body language is universal? How much is it specific to the individual? And how much of it is dependent on the context?
Yes, it is. Okay. that would take us like literally 4 or 5 days to talk about. I mean, there's a stock of standard behaviors that are just human trait. In other words, you'll see a lot of these in. If you want an interesting place to study these things, look at not monkey collies, monkeys and apes, and their standard behaviors. A lot of them have carried on through to us, right? So those will be standard behaviors that are just biological, unless they're suppressed, and we'll talk about that later. Then you have cultural behaviors, and the easiest way to tell those is go to a really alien culture, like Asia or India or some of the Arabic nations or maybe even Africa. Go to a culture that's so totally different to your own that you'll have what's called culture clash. You'll see that things mean different things, and it'll be very confusing at first, and then you suddenly realize, hang on a second, I made all these set of assumptions, and they're cultural assumptions. That's the second answer. Traveling really helps you with that one, right? The third one, I know you'd like to travel. The third one is in terms of idiosyncrasies. Whatever's left will tend to be an idiosyncrasy, right? And then there might be some things that you'll notice happening a lot, and then you might ask yourself, is this a cultural thing, or is this a biological thing? And then traveling will help you build a bigger profile.
Right.
Does that help?
Yeah, just one follow-up.
Sure.
So, for example, if I'm doing this, I'm not necessarily...
Is this still on?
Oh, no. if I'm like this, I'm not necessarily defensive. This
No.
is just a very comfortable
Yeah.
posture for me.
Yeah. So, for example, this is a classic one. Arm crossing, you may as well take this now. Arm crossing can be a sign of defensiveness because you're shielding, right? But it doesn't have to be. If the temperature is cold, it's contextual, right? People are keeping warm, right? It could be habitual. In other words, it's in idiosyncrasy. When someone gets, for example, into lecturing mode, they go, okay, let me tell you about so-and-so, right? In that case, it's a habitual thing. So, as I say, the things that most people pay attention to, this is why I have a problem with many body language books, because they'll tell you things like, this person is closed. Actually, no. Crossed legs is a sign of comfort. Someone who is stressed will tend to have legs open, maybe even hide the legs behind the chair. Think about it. What looks more relaxed to you right now? Where do I feel look more at ease? Like this? No. Or like that? Yeah. Right? Of course, if I'm doing this, that's another thing. But you see how you can't pinpoint one behavior and say, on its own, that's what it means. It's an quality that's being expressed amongst other things.
So the point is that I think, my understanding is that when you're calibrating, you just can't make an assumption that it's general for everyone. It's
yes.
The crossing of the legs may
yes.
be defensive for that particular person.
Yes. The things you can make a general assumption about is stress versus comfort, right? That is the only level you can make a universal judgment on, stress versus comfort. There's a couple of other signals. We'll talk about one of them in a moment if we hopefully get to it. But as a rule, that's the baseline of human experience, stress and comfort. That's the parasympathetic nervous system versus the sympathetic nervous system. Beyond that, and even within that, you don't know what that stress means. Is it the stress of dislike? Is it the stress of a threatening idea? Is it the stress of their own pressure or just a stressed person, right? So it becomes a more complex game. All I can do right now, because otherwise we'll take time away from doing conversation hypnosis, which really is our focus here, is to introduce you to these ideas, give you some tools for getting sensitized to it. My recommendation is do not label these experiences yet, just notice them, right? Right now, just notice that some people have their legs back and some have them forward. Some people meet you like this, some people meet you like this, some people will meet you like this, right? Just notice these things, and over time, those patterns will start making more sense to you because you'll have larger reference experiences. Does that make sense to you guys? But that will take time to build up. It's either that, or I put on another seminar for 4 or 5 days to do these things. But that will not be now, because that's not what we're doing here. Does it make sense to you guys? There's only so much I can fit into one particular thing. So very quickly now, let's just move around just 2 minutes to check eyes and lips, and I'll show you how to use that and put it all together, okay? Off you go.